The chains of spectral energy pulsed violently, wrapping tighter around the monstrous spirit that hovered above the shattered throne. Kale's outstretched arm trembled slightly under the strain, but his eyes remained steely. Locked onto the Wraith King's flickering form, "You think this binds me?" the spirit hissed. A voice like cracking ice echoing from the ghostly figure. "You're a mere human, no match for the ethereal Wraith King." Kale's breath was ragged, his chest heaving not from fear, but from an overwhelming surge of defiance that had carried him through countless battles. "I don't need to match you," he muttered, voice low but resolute. "I only need to hold you long enough to turn your power against your own." Around him, the alien challengers, tall, sinewy creatures with eyes like molten silver, watched in stunned silence. Whispers rippled through their ranks like a chilling wind. "He dared to bind the Wraith King's spirit, to wield it as his phantom legion," one murmured. Voice barely audible but laced with disbelief. A few took cautious steps back, their weapons lowered but ready. Kale's fingers clenched, the invisible chains tighter. The spectral energy cut into his skin, cold and unrelenting, but the pain was a welcome reminder. He was alive and he was fighting. His mind flashed back to the day his unit was wiped out, ambushed by alien forces in a remote sector of the galaxy. Betrayed from within, the memory struck like a sharpened blade, fueling a fire that refused to die. "They thought I was finished," he thought bitterly, "but I'm still here. And now I hold their deadliest weapon in my grasp." He glanced down at the floor strewn with debris, the remnants of a once glorious throne room. Now a battlefield scarred by war and ambition. The ethereal glow of the spirit flickered erratically, as if resisting the bonds, but Kale held firm. "You don't scare me," he said. Voice steady despite the surge of energy threatening to overwhelm him. A sudden, violent surge of power burst from the Wraith King's form, sending Kale staggering backward. The chains rattled, the spectral light flickered dangerously. Kale gritted his teeth, steadying himself against the force. "Not yet," he growled. Why do you resist?" the spirit demanded, its form twisting in frustration. "You could have joined me, wielded my power freely. Instead, you bind me like a prisoner." Kale took a slow, deliberate breath. "Because I don't serve monsters," he replied, voice hard as steel. His mind raced, he knew the risks. The spirit was ancient, unpredictable, and its power could consume him if he faltered. Yet this was the only way to even the odds against the alien warlords who haunted his nightmares. He shifted his stance, feeling the cold chains biting deeper into his flesh. Around him, the alien challengers began to circle cautiously, their weapons humming with energy. One stepped forward, a towering figure draped in dark armor, eyes blazing. "Human," it snarled, voice like grinding stone, "you toy with forces beyond your understanding. Surrender the spirit, and your death will be swift." Kale's eyes narrowed, a flicker of anger igniting. Not a chance. He tightened his grip on the spectral chains, forcing the Wraith King's form to waver. "I'm not here to die." The alien lunged, weapon raised, but Kale was ready. With a sudden surge of strength, he swung his arm, sending a wave of spectral energy crashing into the attacker. The alien staggered, howling in pain as the ghostly chains lashed out like living whips. Kale's mind was a whirlwind of pain, memory, and strategy. He recalled the faces of his fallen comrades, friends who had trusted him, only to be betrayed and slaughtered. Their deaths fueled his every move, every calculated risk. He couldn't afford to fail, not here, not now. Hold the line. He shouted to the scattered human survivors, hiding behind battered barricades. His voice cut through the tense silence like a beacon. "We use the Phantom Legion. We fight or we die." The phrase sent a ripple through the battlefield. The Wraith King's spirit, bound but restless, shimmered ominously. Kale knew the spirit's power was both a weapon and a curse. If he lost control, it would unleash devastation indiscriminately. He could feel the spirit probing his mind, seeking cracks in his resolve. Stay focused, he told himself. You are the master now. Sweat dripped down his brow as he channeled more spectral energy into the chains. His arm burned, muscles trembling under the strain. The alien challengers hesitated, their confidence shaken by the human's audacity. Some whispered among themselves, doubt creeping in where once there was certainty. Kale, a voice broke through the chaos, a soft, familiar tone. He turned his head slightly to see Myra, a fellow renegade and former intelligence officer, her eyes wide with concern. You're pushing too hard. The spirit could break free, and when it does, no one here will survive. Kale's jaw tightened. I know the risks, but if I don't hold it, we lose everything. Myra stepped closer, lowering her voice. We're running out of time. The alien reinforcements will be here any minute. You need to decide, bind the spirit completely, or release it and risk the fallout. Kale's mind raced. The decision was brutal: control the Wraith King and wield its power, or let go and unleash chaos that could destroy friend and foe alike. But hesitation could mean death for the remaining humans. I don't have the luxury of waiting, Kale said finally, voice grim. We fight with what we have. He raised his arm higher, channels of spectral energy glowing brighter, wrapping around the Wraith King's form like living chains of light. The spirit's form flickered violently, a terrifying visage of rage and desperation. You will regret this, human, the Wraith King spat, voice echoing like thunder. I am death incarnate. Kale met the spirit's gaze, unwavering. Then let's see who death chooses first. The battlefield held its breath. The alien challengers exchanged nervous glances, the tension palpable. Somewhere deep inside, Kale felt the spirit's power thrumming against his will, a maddening pulse that threatened to overwhelm him. But he gritted his teeth, standing firm. Behind the shattered pillars of the throne room, shadows shifted. Unseen eyes watched, waiting for the next move in this deadly game. Kale knew this was just the beginning, a war not only for survival, but for control over forces that could reshape the galaxy. And as the ghostly chains tightened, binding the ethereal Wraith King's spirit to his will, Kale understood one truth above all. In this fight, defiance was his only weapon and his only hope. Kale's eyes snapped open as the emergency siren blared through the ship's corridors. Ghost signatures detected on Deck 3. A frantic voice crackled through the comms. Without hesitation, Kale shoved himself upright, muscles taut beneath his battle-worn armor. Not glory, but redemption, he muttered under his breath. The mantra that had steeled him through countless nights of doubt and despair. Around him, faceless alien commanders exchanged skeptical glances, their silver eyes gleaming with thinly veiled contempt. Yet on the battered faces of the human survivors, there was something different, something fragile and flickering: hope. The air in the command center was thick with tension. Kale's jaw clenched as he surveyed the room, the weight of responsibility pressing down like a crushing gravity well. The mission was clear and impossible: slay the ethereal Wraith King, a spectral overlord whose power had shattered entire fleets, leaving nothing but despair and ruin in his wake. Rumors whispered among the stars told of entire crews, driven mad by the Wraith King's ghostly touch. Their ships falling silent, swallowed by the void. No one who faced the Wraith King had ever lived to tell the tale. Yet Kale's obsession with this shadowy figure had only deepened. Kale, you're walking into a death sentence. Myra's voice cut through the charged silence, sharp with worry. She stood close, her eyes searching his, trying to find reason beneath the storm. The crew is already showing signs: panic, hallucinations, systems failing. We're barely holding it together. Her fingers trembled as she tapped frantically on the console, energy readings spiking erratically. If that thing gets inside our heads, we won't just lose the battle, we'll lose everything. Kale's gaze hardened, the flickering lights casting long shadows across his face. I know what's at stake, he said quietly, voice rough from sleepless nights and unending battles. But I can't let fear dictate our fate. We either stand and fight or we die trying. He paused, swallowing the bitter taste of doubt that threatened to poison his resolve. This isn't about glory, Myra. It's about redemption. About making sure humanity survives, even if it means wielding a power darker than any of us can comprehend. The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. The alien commanders, their forms shadowed and unreadable, murmured among themselves. Their skepticism was palpable, but so was the grudging respect. Kale was no ordinary human. He had become a symbol of defiance against insurmountable odds. Are you sure this obsession is worth it? One commander's voice slithered through the air, cold and mocking. The Wraith King isn't just a myth. He's a nightmare made flesh. No one who faces him survives, except as a husk, a puppet to his will. Kale's eyes flashed with a fire that burned through years of loss and betrayal. Then maybe it's time someone faced that nightmare head-on. As the crew prepared for the confrontation, unsettling reports poured in. Ghostly apparitions stalked the ship's dim corridors, their faint whispers seeping into the minds of the weary crew. Several men and women had already fallen into despair, lost to bouts of madness that left them curled in silent terror. Energy readings fluctuated wildly, systems glitched unpredictably, and the very fabric of reality seemed to warp around them. The Wraith King's presence was undeniable, a haunting, spectral force threatening to unravel their sanity. Kale moved through the corridors with purposeful strides, his every step echoing the turmoil within. His mind wrestled with the dark power he sought to harness, the ethereal energy that could either save or condemn them all. The Phantom Legion, as he called it, was a weapon forged in the shadow of death. A fragment of the ethereal Wraith King's own essence bound to his will. But every time he summoned its power, a part of his soul felt the chilling grip of the spirit, whispering promises of destruction and vengeance. In the quiet of the ship's command deck, Kale's fingers traced the worn edges of a small hollow screen displaying a faded photograph, a memory from a time before the war. Faces of fallen comrades stared back at him, their smiles frozen in moments of peace. "I owe you this," he whispered, voice thick with grief. "I'll make sure your sacrifice wasn't in vain." Suddenly, a low hum rippled through the hull, and the ship shuddered as if caught in an unseen grasp. "Captain," Myra's voice was tight with alarm, "the Wraith King's energy signature is intensifying. The spectral distortions are increasing. This isn't just a battle, it's a test of our very souls." Kale nodded, swallowing the lump of fear lodged in his throat. "Prepare the Phantom Legion," he ordered. "This ends now." The alien commanders gathered around him, their expressions a mixture of doubt and grudging acceptance. One of them, a towering figure named Vrax, stepped forward, his tone laced with reluctant respect. "You're playing a dangerous game, human. The Wraith King's power is a curse, not a tool." Kale's eyes locked with Vrax's, unyielding. "Maybe. But it's the only way we survive." As the ship hurtled toward the hunting grounds of the ethereal Wraith King, Kale's thoughts spiraled deeper into the abyss of his own conscience. Was his pursuit vengeance? Or was it something more, a desperate bid for redemption not just for himself, but for all humanity teetering on the brink of annihilation? The corridors grew colder, the air thick with an otherworldly chill. Crew members whispered of shadows moving just beyond sight, of voices calling their names in the dark. Kale's own nightmares bled into waking hours, the line between reality and the spectral realm blurring. In a rare moment of solitude, Myra approached him again. Kale, if you lose control, if the spirit breaks free. Her voice faltered, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. We all die. Kale's response was a grim smile, bitter yet resolute. Then I'll die fighting, because surrender is not an option. The final hours before the confrontation were a symphony of mounting dread and fierce determination. The human crew, battered but unbroken, rallied around Kale's indomitable will. The alien commanders, once scornful, now watched with wary eyes, sensing the fragile hope he carried. As the spectral energy readings on the monitors spiraled out of control, Kale's heart pounded not just with fear, but with the raw, unyielding fire of a man who had chosen to face darkness, not to conquer it for glory, but to redeem a broken humanity. Is the Wraith King real? A young soldier whispered to Kale, voice trembling. Or is he just a ghost story to scare us? Kale's gaze hardened, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. He's very real and very deadly, but so are we. The ship shuddered again, the ghostly presence looming ever closer. Kale took a deep breath, feeling the ethereal chains of the Phantom Legion tighten around his soul. The fight was about to begin, and with it, the fate of all they held dear. In that moment, surrounded by doubt and fear, Kale stood tall, not as a hero seeking glory, but as a man grasping for redemption amid the encroaching darkness. And for the first time in a long while, hope flickered. Kale's fingers tightened instinctively around the hilt of his spectral blade, as the Wraith King's twisted laughter echoed through the shadowed halls of the ethereal fortress. You think this fortress can hold me? The Wraith King spat, its voice a jagged shard of ice slicing through the oppressive silence. The air shimmered with an unnatural chill, and the walls themselves seemed to ripple and warp, distorting reality like a living mirage. Kale's breath came in ragged bursts, each inhale tasting faintly of ash and despair. Around him, his squad moved with tense precision, shadows slipping between the fractured pillars and jagged remnants of a throne long forgotten. The squad's usual confidence was fraying under the weight of the Wraith King's presence. Spectral tendrils flickered along the edges of their vision, whispers clawing at their minds, taunting with memories they wish to forget. Kale, the illusions, don't trust what your eyes tell you. Myra hissed just behind him, her voice barely rising above the wailing wind that seemed to seep from the fortress itself. Her eyes darted wildly, scanning for threats that twisted in and out of phase. Kale's gaze flickered to the flickering forms ahead. The Wraith King's forces weren't just spirits, they were nightmares made flesh, phasing through walls, materializing with screams that echoed inside the soldiers' skulls. Conventional weapons passed harmlessly through their forms, leaving only the chilling sense of vulnerability. The squad's plasma rifles sputtered futilely against an enemy that was both everywhere and nowhere. We can't keep this up, Joran muttered, voice tight as his hands trembled slightly on his rifle. We need another plan, or we're ghosts waiting to be erased. His usual bravado was replaced by raw fear, a reflection of the squad's crumbling morale. Kale swallowed the rising dread gnawing at his gut. He had known this mission would push them beyond limits, but nothing prepared him for the sheer madness of facing the ethereal Wraith King in its own domain. The fortress itself was a living entity, warping perceptions and reality alike. The weight of the spectral oppression pressed on his chest like a vice, threatening to crush his very soul. But beneath the fear, something else burned, a desperate curiosity, a reckless hope. Kale's eyes flicked down to the device strapped to his wrist, the spectral binding chains. A forbidden technology cobbled together from alien artifacts, scavenged from fallen war zones. They were the only weapons that might hold the Wraith King in place long enough to strike a decisive blow. Kale, Myra's voice was sharp, pulling him back from the swirling chaos of his thoughts. If we engage with conventional weapons, this ends badly. You have to try the chains, Now, he nodded, the weight of choice settling heavily on his shoulders. No turning back, he murmured, steeling himself as he raised the device. The chains hummed to life, ethereal light spilling from the alien tech in tendrils of shimmering blue. The Wraith King's form twisted, sensing the challenge. "Foolish human," it snarled. "You toy with forces beyond your reach. You will be consumed." Kale's jaw clenched, the chains shot forward, wrapping around the Wraith King's flickering form, with a crackle of spectral energy. The spirit writhed, its shape distorting violently, but the chains held, glowing brighter with each pulse. "Hold it," Kale commanded, sweat beading on his brow as the chains bit cold into his skin. The strain was immense, and the spirit's power surged like a tidal wave, threatening to tear free. "Kale, your mind," Myra shouted, her eyes wide as she saw the first signs of spiritual corruption flicker across his face. "Don't let it take you." But Kale's mind was a battleground. A voice whispered from the depths of the spirit's essence, seductive, dark, promising power beyond reckoning if only he would let go. Temptation clawed at his resolve, threatening to unravel the fragile grip he maintained. "I'm not yours," Kale growled aloud, shaking off the darkness that sought to claim him. His eyes blazed with defiance, a flicker of his old self shining through the haze. Around them, the squad fought desperately. Spectral blades clashed with plasma fire, the air thick with bursts of energy and anguished cries. Each moment stretched thin, a knife edge balancing between survival and utter annihilation. Suddenly, the Wraith King unleashed a devastating psychic assault, a wave of raw spectral energy crashing into the squad's minds. Visions flooded their consciousness, memories distorted, fears magnified, bonds shattered. The world twisted into a maelstrom of terror. "Kale!" Joran's voice broke through the chaos, strained and desperate. "It's coming for us, our minds." Kale's heart hammered in his chest. The psychic onslaught was brutal, relentless and merciless. He watched helplessly as one by one, his comrades faltered, their eyes glazing over, trapped in endless torment. Then the Wraith King's voice slithered like poison. "To save them, one must be sacrificed. Choose, human. Your ally's life or your own." Kale's mind screamed in defiance, the impossible choice tearing at his soul. Myra's trembling form hovered nearby, her eyes pleading, her breath shallow. "Kale, don't hesitate," she urged, voice breaking. "If you don't—" "I know," he interrupted, voice heavy with grief. His gaze locked on Myra's, the weight of years of camaraderie and shared battles pressing down. "I won't lose you." His hand hovered over the spectral chains, trembling. The Wraith King's form writhed, sensing his hesitation, feeding on the turmoil. "Sacrifice her and your soul is spared," the spirit hissed. "Refuse and all perish." A cold silence enveloped the fortress as Kale's mind raced. The spectral chains pulsed violently in his grip, the cost of their power bleeding into his very essence. Memories of fallen friends flashed through his mind, faces contorted with betrayal and loss. He had promised to carry their sacrifice forward, to fight for redemption. "I won't let you win," he whispered fiercely, stepping forward. "Not like this." With a roar that shattered the spectral veil, Kale unleashed the full force of the Phantom Legion. The chains flared with blinding light, binding the Wraith King tighter than ever before. The spirit's anguished scream echoed through the fortress, a sound that would haunt the living and the dead alike. But as the Wraith King's form flickered and faltered, Kale felt a searing pain rip through his soul. The spectral corruption clawed deeper, threatening to consume him from within. His vision blurred, the edges of his reality dissolving. "Kale," Myra's voice was a lifeline, grounding him in the storm. "Hold on, you're stronger than this." Summoning every shred of willpower, Kale steadied himself. Digging deep into the core of his being, the chains glowed, a beacon of fragile hope in the encroaching darkness. "We either control the darkness or it controls us," he muttered, voice hoarse but determined. "This fight isn't just for survival, it's for our souls." The fortress trembled as the Wraith King's power waned, but the cost was clear. Kale's soul was marked, forever tethered to the ghostly chains he wielded. His comrades rallied, their spirits bolstered by his sacrifice and defiance. As they retreated from the spectral fortress, the weight of victory settled uneasily on Kale's shoulders. The battle was won, but the war for his soul, and for humanity's future, had only just begun. Kale's vision blurred as spectral chains writhed around his arm, searing cold biting into his flesh, yet his grip never faltered. The Wraith King's spirit, bound and thrashing, unleashed a torrent of dark energy, a tempest of shadow and malice that surged toward Kale like a ravenous storm. His breath hitched, heart pounding violently against his ribs, as he fought not only the spirit's raw power outside, but the creeping darkness clawing within his mind. The room pulsed with an eerie light, flickering shadows dancing across the alien commanders' faces, frozen in a mixture of awe and terror. Nearby, human survivors huddled behind shattered barricades, trembling in both fear and hope, watching the impossible unfold. Kale's teeth clenched, sweat mingled with blood trickling down his temple. "This power, it's consuming me." His thoughts fractured as whispers slithered through his consciousness, promises of dominance, invincibility, and the obliteration of all who opposed him. The Wraith King's voice echoed inside his head, a chilling hiss that made his skin crawl. "Surrender, Kale, we are one. Together we will be unstoppable." He shook his head violently, fighting the seductive pull. "I'm not yours," he growled, voice raw with defiance. His other hand clenched into a fist as he tightened the spectral chains, the ethereal links glowing brighter, binding the spirit more firmly. The spirit howled, an otherworldly sound that rattled the very core of the ship. From the command deck, Myra's urgent voice cut through the cacophony. "Kale, you're pushing too hard. The darkness won't just consume you, it'll devour us all if you lose control." Her eyes were wide with desperation as she sprinted toward him, dodging flickering apparitions that phased through the walls. "You have to pull back, now." Kale's gaze met hers for a fleeting moment, pain, resolve, and an unspoken apology flickering in his eyes. "I can't," he said through gritted teeth. "If I don't hold this spirit, we're finished. The aliens will crush us, and humanity's last hope dies with me." His voice cracked, betraying the immense psychological strain he bore. "I'm fighting to keep us alive, even if it costs me everything." The alien commanders shifted uneasily, their shimmering silver eyes reflecting a growing respect tinged with fear. Vrax, the towering figure clad in dark armor, stepped forward, voice low and gravelly. "Human, you tamper with forces no mortal should wield. Your soul frays with every moment you hold that cursed spirit. You're not becoming a hero, you're becoming a monster." Kale's lips curled into a bitter smile. "Maybe that's what it takes," he replied, voice hard as obsidian. "Monsters don't win wars, but sometimes monsters survive." Suddenly, the ship trembled violently as the dark energy surged again, knocking Kale to his knees. The spectral chains rattled wildly, the Wraith King's spirit writhing like a storm-tossed flame. His vision dimmed, the edges of his consciousness fraying like tattered cloth. "No asterisk," he thought fiercely, gritting his teeth as he forced himself upright. "Not yet," he whispered, voice barely audible. "I'm still the master." The air around him shimmered as Kale summoned every ounce of willpower. Reaching deep into the void within himself, into the shadowed recesses where fear and desperation warred, he called upon the Phantom Legion, the bound ethereal spirits drawn from the Wraith King's own essence. An army forged in spectral chains and indomitable will. "Legion, rise," Kale commanded, voice booming with authority that resonated across dimensions. Around him, ghostly figures materialized, soldiers long dead, their faces etched with pain and defiance, their forms flickering like pale stars against the void. They answered the call, their ethereal weapons shimmering, ready to tear through reality itself. The alien armada's flagship loomed ahead, a massive, gleaming behemoth bristling with weapons and crackling with energy. Kale's mind became a war zone as he led the Phantom Legion, spectral soldiers phasing through solid matter, merging with technology in a chaotic ballet of destruction. "Hold formation," Kale barked, gripping the spectral chains while simultaneously guiding his legion's assault. "Focus on the bridge. We take out their command, we break their will." The battle raged across dimensions. Laser fire ripped through ghostly apparitions, while ethereal blades sliced through alien hulls as if cutting through mist. The fusion of spectral power and advanced technology created an otherworldly spectacle, a war of light and shadow that twisted the very fabric of space. Inside his mind, Kale wrestled a far more dangerous battle. The Wraith King's original spirit, though bound, clawed at his mind incessantly. Its voice was a venomous whisper, promising ultimate power if Kale would only surrender. "Give in, Kale," the spirit coaxed, its tone both soothing and menacing. "Join me and together we will reign. You will be unstoppable, feared across the stars." Kale's grip tightened on the chains until his knuckles whitened. "I fight for humanity, not domination," he growled. "I am not your puppet." The spirit's form flickered violently, shifting between rage and desperation. "Foolish human, you cannot hold me forever, you will break." Kale's heart pounded fiercely. "If I break, everything falls apart. If I hold, I risk becoming the darkness I swore to destroy." The weight of that choice crushed him, threatening to drown his resolve. Myra appeared at his side, her voice a lifeline amid the storm. "Kale, listen to me. You don't have to do this alone. We'll fight with you." He glanced at her, exhaustion and gratitude mingling in his gaze. "This is my burden," he said quietly, "but your faith keeps me tethered." Suddenly, the alien admiral, a towering figure encased in dark energy armor, appeared before them, his voice a cold snarl. "You wield accursed power, human. Surrender now or be destroyed." Kale's eyes burned with fierce determination. "I surrender to no one," he declared, raising the chains higher. "Not even to the monster inside me." With a ferocious cry, Kale unleashed a wave of spectral energy, the Phantom Legion surging forward in a relentless tide. The alien armada's flagship shook under the assault, energy shields flickering and failing. But the struggle was far from over. The Wraith King's spirit twisted within Kale's mind, its whispers growing more insistent. The darkness encroaching. "Hold fast," Kale thought, sweat stinging his eyes. This is the price of hope. As the battle reached its fever pitch, Kale realized the war was no longer just for survival. It was for the very soul of humanity. And the line between hero and monster blurred beneath the weight of spectral chains and shattered stars. Kale's breath came in ragged gasps as he stood amidst the carnage of the battlefield, spectral chains still burning into his skin like icy fire. The Wraith King's spirit was writhing within the ethereal bonds, a tempest of shadow and fury seeking escape. Around him, the alien armada's forces faltered, their confidence shattered by the unexpected ferocity of the Phantom Legion's counterattack. Yet inside Kale's mind, a tempest of equal if not greater magnitude raged. The choice before him, heavier than any physical burden, to embrace the darkness fully and become a godlike force, or to reject it and risk losing everything, humanity, hope, and himself. A sudden surge of spectral energy blasted through the air, throwing Kale backward. He crashed onto the jagged debris, vision swimming as the Wraith King's voice echoed in his head, venomous and compelling. Yield Kale, join me. Together we shall remake the stars in our image. You are not meant to be a mere mortal. The spirit's words slithered through his mind. Each syllable a promise of infinite power, boundless dominion. Kale's hand clenched the chains tighter, veins bulging as he forced the voice away. I am no god, he growled, voice rough and resolute despite the exhaustion clawing at his soul. But I am human, and I choose humanity. Pain lanced through his arm, the spectral chains biting deeper, their cold fire threatening to burn through flesh and spirit alike. He staggered to his feet, sweat mixing with blood on his brow as he scanned the battlefield. The human survivors, battered and worn, rallied behind the shimmering shield of the Phantom Legion, their faces etched with a fragile hope that Kale refused to let die. Myra's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and urgent. Kale, if you give in to the spirit, it'll consume you and us all. You have to hold it, not surrender. She darted beside him, eyes wide with fear and fierce determination. We're running out of time. The alien reinforcements are regrouping. They'll strike again soon. Kale nodded, swallowing the bitter weight of his choice. The darkness inside him whispered still, but his will was steel. Then I'll forge this curse into a shield, he said quietly, voice barely audible over the clash of battle. The Phantom Legion will not be a weapon of destruction, but a shield for our people. Around them, ghostly figures surged forward, his spectral legion phasing through the alien. Attackers with ethereal blades, their movements fluid and terrifying. The alien armada, though technologically superior, faltered before this unearthly counterattack. Their formations broke, and retreat murmurs rippled through their ranks. Kale's gaze flickered to the Wraith King's form, now flickering with a strange new hue, neither free nor defeated, but bound eternally. A shudder passed through the spectral chains, the spirit's howl of rage and despair echoing through the battlefield. Yet in that howl, Kale heard something else, a grudging acceptance. He stumbled, clutching his arm where the chains burned deepest. Myra reached out, steadying him. You're marked now, she said softly, eyes searching his face. The bond, it's part of you. Kale nodded, the weight of the spectral bond settling heavily on his shoulders. Visible scars will heal, he murmured, voice thick with exhaustion, but these unseen wounds will never fade. He brushed a hand over his temple, where faint spectral veins pulsed beneath the skin. A silence fell over the battlefield as the alien armada's forces retreated, their ships breaking formation and vanishing into the void. The unexpected counterattack had shaken them to their core. Kale allowed himself a brief moment of relief, but the victory was bittersweet. He looked out over the horizon, where the stars blinked coldly in the vastness of space. This battle is won, he said quietly, voice carrying both hope and sorrow, but the war is far from over. Myra's gaze met his, steady and unwavering. You carried the darkness, Kale, but you didn't let it consume you. Kale exhaled slowly, the spectral chains dimming to a faint glow as he lowered his arm. Power without purpose is a curse, he said, voice laced with hard-earned wisdom. I chose to be more than a vessel for destruction. I chose to be a guardian. The survivors gathered around him, faces weary but uplifted by his defiance. Their murmurs of hope grew louder, a fragile flame rekindled against the encroaching void. Kale felt the weight of their faith settle into his bones. A solemn promise to carry the burden of the Phantom Legion, not as a tyrant, but as a shield. As the last alien ships vanished into the darkness, Kale found a quiet moment to reflect. He traced his fingers over the spectral chains, feeling the pulse of the Wraith King's spirit bound within. The price of power had been steep, not only the physical pain, but the constant battle within his soul. Is this what it means to wield power, he wondered. To carry a darkness so vast, yet choose to stand in the light. His mind drifted to the faces of his fallen comrades, their sacrifices etched into his memory like ghostly echoes. For them I will carry this burden. For them humanity will endure. Myra approached, her voice gentle but firm. Kale, the Phantom Legion is more than a weapon now. It's a symbol, a testament to humanity's resilience. He nodded, eyes distant yet resolute. Even cursed strength can be turned into hope, he replied. We've faced the abyss and chosen to fight, to protect, not to destroy. The future remained uncertain, the shadows of the Wraith King still lingering at the edges of reality. But in this moment, Kale stood victorious, not as a god, but as a man who had chosen humanity over absolute power. And that choice, he knew, was the true victory. The war for the stars was far from over, but humanity had won a crucial battle. Against impossible odds, Kale had forged a legacy, not of domination but of defiance, sacrifice, and hope. As the stars blinked coldly above, Kale's voice echoed softly into the night. We fight on, for those who fell, for those who remain. For the future we dare to dream. And with that, the spectral chains faded to a gentle glow. A silent guardian, watching over humanity's fragile flame in the endless dark.